The big question right now, is this just a one-off, or should we really be worried about the state of the European economy?
Good morning. Indeed, if you look at the European Commission economic forecast, we see some slowdown in European economy. For example, we expect euro area economy to grow this year by 1.3%. But still, we expect growth in all member states, and still we see that economic growth is set to continue because we have quite strong fundamentals. Also, positive developments in the labor market continues, so employment is at record high levels. There's positive wage developments, so we expect that European economy will continue to grow. But what we had seen is that some of the risk factors, which we had been discussing before, are materializing. That concerns, for example, global trade tensions. It concerns slowdown in developing economies, including China. And then there are also certain internal factors. We are just a couple of weeks before supposed Brexit date, but there is still not certainty how exactly it's going to play out. We saw policy uncertainty concerning, for example, fiscal trajectory of Italy, so there are also certain domestic factors at play.
I see, and there are two big economies that are in focus. One is Germany. The debate there is, should they spend more to stimulate the economy? The flip side is the Italian economy. It's in a recession now. Are we concerned about that deficit target? Is that two areas where you see progress needs to be made?
Well, as regards Germany, indeed, as other major EU economies, we see certain slowdown, and we see that it's also linked with those global trade developments, and there had been also some specific factors which are probably more like of one-off nature. But in any case, European Commission's advice to Germany already during the last couple of years had been to stimulate the demand side of the economy and to put more money in investment. And I think this advice remains valid now.
Great. And in terms of the Italian budget, I know you keep a very close eye on that. The deficit projection is very tight. The economy is not growing. Are you concerned about that?
Well, indeed, of all 28 EU economies, the slowdown in Italy has been more pronounced. So we now expect only 0.2% growth this year. And indeed, we see that this damage which was created to the economy by uncertainty on government's fiscal plans, on initial plans to substantially increase budget deficit, has now really resulted in slower economic growth because interest rates had gone up, confidence has gone down, it potentially negatively affects investment. So it's important that Italy actually continues with responsible fiscal policies and puts its public debt clearly on downwards path.
That 2.04% deficit target still valid, still applies?
Well, today we are presenting our European semester winter package, and in this winter package we are not dealing with a fiscal question, so we'll come back to this question in a spring package following also when Italy will submit its so-called stability program with medium-term budgetary outlook.
Right, so the decision is made later. And I have to ask you about Brexit. Come March 29, will the UK be leaving the European Union, or you say that actually we'll have to ask for an extension, and how likely is that? Because the EU will have to agree to it.
Well, first of all, it's difficult for us to speculate. It's for UK to request the extension if they want so. Conceptually, it has been indicated from EU side already numerous times that we are conceptually open to discuss it, but first, real request needs to come from the UK.
And what is the criteria? If you wanted to give the UK an extension, what is the purpose? What do you want to see for Prime Minister May?
Well, in this case, of course, if there is a request of extension, and if it then helps to reach this agreement, this extra time, EU has already signaled before openness for that kind of extension.
And how long should it be? Because we have an election clearly in May. That would perhaps clash with it. How long should it be?
Well, once again, it's not for us to speculate how long it should be. There are also different possibilities. Of course, European Parliament elections in May is a factor because EU member states have to have members of European Parliament because it's one of the EU co-legislators. But first we need to see the request from UK, and then we can work based on that.
And now I also have to ask you about trade, because US-China has obviously waited on markets for a year, but the focus get turned to Europe. Are you concerned that we could see those tariffs on European cars being hiked up all the way to maybe 25%?
Well, as you know, we are still in negotiations with US on avoiding this scenario, avoiding some kind of unilateral action from US side, some escalation of trade tensions, and those negotiations still are ongoing, and from EU side we are pursuing them in good faith and of course want to avoid that kind of escalation.